Namaskar, good evening. Welcome to Kritya-Poetry Festival, Kavita with Kritya and East meet West. This is it, the program of today. And we are here to recite our poems when the world is completely devastated. Every heart is a war field. Every soul is fighting a war. It's not only two countries in front to front. It's not Ukraine versus Russia. Rather, we can say the whole world is standing on the edge of a war. And whenever there is a war, the biggest victim is the humanity. And the duty of a poet, when there is a war, the most bleeding soul is the poet. So in a bleeding time, in a devastating time, in a worrying time, I welcome you all to listen poems of peace, poems of humanity. I'm extremely happy to be a part of Kritya Poetry movement, and I just want to tell all of you that you know what is Kritya. Kritya Poetry movement for last so many years is creating a platform for poets all over the world, poets from India, poets from other countries, and creating a platform where there is dialogue, when there is discussions, debate, discourse, led by eminent poet, translator Rati Saxena ji. This platform has created a wonderful place to celebrate poetry and at the same time to celebrate the life. So we are here to celebrate poetry and celebrate life, and for that we have six very distinguished poets. The theme of this session is East meets West. At two Eastern Indian languages, Odia and Assamese, and three very powerful poets from these two languages. Anubhav Tulasi from Assam, a very good friend. We are friends since last almost 2.5 decades. Anubhav is a wonderful poet, a very sensible human being, a professor, a brilliant art critic, essayist, and above all, he is one of the leading poets of Assamese. I welcome my dear friend Anubhav to this festival. From my language, that is Odia, we have two very eminent poets. Pradeep Kumar Panda, who is one of the most sensible voices of our time. In Odisha, his experimental style, his diction, it's something extraordinary. And he's a poet. You know, Pradeep is he has been retired from his job, but he gave complex to many youngsters. I always say, he is the youngest uh, poet of our time who writes the most vibrant poetry in the contemporary time. I welcome Pradeep Kumar Pandaji and Pritidhara, who lives in the southernmost district of Odisha. Basically, it's a tribal land called Koraput. Pritidhara is a very strong women voice, a very strong poetic representation of the tribal land. I welcome Pritidhara, our friend Ghassan, Iryna, and I'm forgetting the other friends. So it's a great opportunity to see all of you in this platform. It's again another platform. It's another opportunity to express our solidarity with the people who are suffering, who are facing missiles who are being targeted by imperialistic forces. In our poetry, we express our solidarity to the people of Ukraine. We express our solidarity to the people who are facing the most brutal weapons of this time. We are also expressing our desire to see a world full of peace, solidarity, and tranquility. With these words, I request Kamayani ji to take forward this session, and I wish all my poets friends all the best. And I'm here waiting to listen some of the finest poems, some of the finest voices of our time. It's up to now. It's over to Kamayani ji to take forward the session.
Thank you so much, Kedarji. Thank you for the introduction. On behalf of Ratiji, I welcome everyone to this poetry session. It's been a while since we all met you during the Kritya Poetry Festival last year. I'm so happy that we're back with some wonderful poems and some wonderful poets. First and foremost, we have Iryna. Iryna Vikyrchak is a Ukrainian culture manager and poet. She was born in the town of Zalishchiki in western Ukraine, but has lived, organized, and worked in literary and cultural events across Ukraine in different cities as well as abroad in Europe. She is the author of 3 books of poetry, the most recent of which was published in Kiev in 2021. She's an active member of PEN Ukraine, though right now she lives in Kolkata. Iryna, we are so happy to have you here. And while we wish and hope that everyone back home is happy, doing well, and safe, we understand the anxiety that you're going through. And I'm sure your poetry will be a beautiful articulation of all that one would write and feel in a war torn country. Welcome, Iryna. We are
Yeah,
eager to hear you.
yeah. Good evening. Thank you so much for expressing your solidarity. It means a lot these days, and I'm very honored to be part of Kritya Poetry reading. So thank you also for the invitation and for the opportunity to be vocal about what's going on in my country. I will start with reading a poem I wrote in English originally, though I normally write in my native language, in my mother tongue, in Ukrainian. And this poem is in English because it was addressed to all my international friends, to international community, and dedicated to all my friends who are, it was written 6 days ago, and it was dedicated to friends who were displaced, who lost their homes due to the occupation of the eastern regions of Ukraine. And now, in just less than a week, situation changed drastically. And you see all on the news, and I receive pictures from my friends who are staying on the metro station to keep safe from aviation strikes. So here's the poem, originally written in English. You are a poet, they say. We expect you to give us answers. You are a poet, they say. Explain us everything with a poem, a painful one, strong. Render your loss and grieve over your dead with some new metaphors. Make the words in your language meet in the order they've never met before. You are a poet, they say. What can I answer them as a poet, a woman, a friend who lost friends to the monster of war? Who has friends and friends of friends who will never return, who left their home libraries burned with the buildings destroyed by the lethal arms, so they themselves can flee and live, homeless, bookless, wordless, but yet alive. Who am I as a poet not coming from the regions affected, a war victim imposter, an empath with cinematographic imagination, the free verses in my head, not giving myself the right to speak on the war that is not even mine. You are a poet, they say. You come from that country. We expect you to be giving answers, to write poems. How can I answer them with a poem? when anxiety cut off my voice, played on my vocal cords, ate up my words. Haven't you read it all in the New York Times, in the Guardian, and also your local press? Haven't you used your empathy and some visuals from movies you've seen? Would you like me to send you a link? I am not even writing this poem in the language of victims, although I should, for it's all them who are seeking the answers, for it's not up to me to know any. And so the next poems I will read in Ukrainian, and thank you, Kamayani, for reading the English translations. Розі Ауслендер в Нью-Йорку. Розо, ти знала, як почути Бога у самому серці Мангеттену? Якимось чином ловила руками алюмінієві спіралі пружин, що звисають з неба, а потім відходила на безпечну відстань до єдиної яблуні в Центральному парку і вибирала слова. Закладала їх в яблуко замість зерен і відправляла пружиною в космос, відпускала. Розо, я знаю, ти чула голоси поколінь, що застрягли в повітрі між 34-ю і 5-ю авеню. Сортувала їх по зайнятих офісах, телефонних кабелях і телеграфу до Європи, а також у радіоефіри нью-йоркських служб таксі. І водії, бадьорі та байдужі, приймали їхні замовлення, їхали за неіснуючими адресами, блукали, зникали, звільняли. This poem dedicated to poet who wrote in German and English, poet of the 20th century. She is no longer Rosa Auslander, and it feels very good to read in Ukrainian. You know. So the translation. No?
Yes. So here's the translation of the poem that Iryna just recited in Ukrainian. Rose, you knew how to find God in the very heart of Manhattan. Your hands could somehow catch the aluminium spirals of springs that hang down from the sky, and then you'd withdraw to a safe distance to the only apple tree in Central Park, and you'd select words, put them into an apple instead of seeds, and use the springs to send them out into space. You let them go. Rose, I knew you heard the voices of the generations that got stuck in the air between 34th Street and 5th Avenue. You sorted them among busy offices, telephone cables, and telegraphs to Europe, as well as on the New York taxicab frequency, and the drivers, cheerful and indifferent, accepted their dispatches, drove towards non-existent addresses, wandered, vanished, liberated. This poem was translated by Ostap Kin and Ali Kinsella.
Thank you so much. Сезонна. Щоби пізнати Господа, і ти про це думаєш кожного разу на злітній смузі, треба вдивлятися у далекі вогні, пам'ятати про гравітацію, вивчати фізику, робити знімки перехожим, заглядати їм в очі та душу, кожні півроку переїжджати, аби набирати повітря в легені, випірнувши. Щоб подолати сезонну, глядіти в обличчя страхам, покладатись на психосоматику, думати про смерть і змирити з її неминучістю, чи пізніше, чи вже сьогодні. Тікати, щоб не згубитись, чекати посадки по той бік, де любов продається в негарних старбаксі. Приймати, не роздивившись, порушивши вивчену фізику як аксіому сезонну, що кожної осені, кожного з нас є потрохи Нью-Йорку, і трохи Нью-Йорку у кожному з нас. Kamayani, please.
Here's the translation. In order to understand God, and this is something you think about every time you're on a runway, you need to stare into the distant lights, remember gravity, and study physics. Take snapshots for passers-by, look into their eyes and souls, Move every 6 months so you can fill your lungs with air when you emerge onto the surface. In order to overcome the seasonal, stare your fears in the face. Rely on psychosomatic medicine. Think about death and come to terms with its inevitability, either later or even today. Run away so you don't get lost. Await your landing on the other side, where love is sold in bookstores and Starbucks. Accept without question, ignoring what you learned in physics, like a seasonal axiom, that every fall there's a little bit of each of us in New York and a little bit of New York in each of us. Iryna, over to you.
Mhm. Thank you so much. And the last poem for today. Ти дряпаєш мене зсередини, гострими кутами білого гіпсового куба, такий разючий і непіддатливий. Такий куб я пам'ятаю з художньої школи. На нього ставили овочі, глек, натюрморт. І тоді шурхали олівцями по паперові та по мольбертах, кожен із нас своїм начерком. Тепер я така ж порожня, як кімната для класу рисунку. На вигляд лиш стіни й мольберти, як шкрябання на звук. Бо ти видряпуєш мене зсередини, бо ти живеш у моїй оболонці, і вона витоншується від кожного удару гострим кутом, по тому м'якому жіночному, що залишилось від мого нутра. Ще трохи, і я розсиплюся, зруйнована твоїми докорами, і залишаться тільки очі. Через них я заново себе вивчу. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, this poem is translated again by Nina Murray. You scrape on my insides. You scrape on my insides with the sharp corners of a white plaster cube, so undeniable. Intractable, I remember a cube like this from art classes. It's the one we set up with produce and a pitcher for a still life, pencils swished on paper, on easels, each one of us with her own touch. Now I'm empty like that room, nothing to see but walls, easels, nothing to hear but swish and scrape, because you do scrape at me from inside, because you live in my shell, and it gives just a bit every time one of your sharp corners pokes at the soft and feminine stuff that remains of me, of my innards. Another one, and I'll spill into shards, shattered by your reproach. My eyes alone will remain. Through them, I'll weave me another self. Thank you, Iryna. Thank you so much for all your lovely poems. We enjoyed hearing you in Ukrainian and we enjoyed hearing the English translations. It was also lovely to hear the baby. I think the baby is going to grow up into a poet as well. Thank you so much.
I hope so. Thank you all. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Next, we have Pradeep Kumar Panda. Pradeep Kumar Panda, who belongs to Sambalpur in Orissa, is an Odia poet. Currently, he's working as professor at Bhima Bhoi Research Chair, GM University, Sambalpur. A well-known name in the Odia circuit, Professor Pradeep Kumar has 9 collections of poems to his credit, a translation of Gajanan Madhav Muktibodh's Andhere Mein, and numerous articles in literary journals. Currently, he is working on Shanta Kavi Bhima Bhoi, the 19th century poet. Pradeepji will be reading his poetry in Odia, and I shall read the translation in Hindi. Welcome, Pradeepji. No, we cannot hear you, Pradeepji. Yes. No. Fine.
Now? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I extend my solidarity to the people of Ukraine. Hello, everybody, my fellow poets, host of Kritya with Kavita and all poetry lovers. Namaskar, authore. ମୁଁ ପ୍ରଥମେ ମୋର ନିଜ ମାତୃଭାଷା ଓଡ଼ିଆରେ ଗୋଟେ କବିତା ଆପଣମାନଙ୍କୁ ଶୁଣାଇବାକୁ ଯାଉଛି। କବିତାର ଶୀର୍ଷକ ସତେଜ ଘା। Actually, this poem was written 2 years back with a flashback inspiration from Jammu and Kashmir of my country. ସତେଜ ଘା ସଜ ଫୁଟା ଫୁଲଟୁ ସୁନ୍ଦର তোর ভঙ্গা সিংহ মূলর সতেজ ঘা রে মইষি ପହଞ୍ଚୁ ନାହିଁ ତୋର ପ୍ରାଗୈତିହାସିକ ଲାଞ୍ଜ ଘଉଡ଼ାଇବାକୁ ଯୁଦ୍ଧଖୋର ମାଛିଙ୍କୁ ତଥାପି ତୁ ଶାନ୍ତ ଚାହିଁଲେ ବି ଚାଟି ପାରିବୁ ନାହିଁ ତୁ ଭୀଷଣତମ ଭୋକର ରକ୍ତ ତୋର ରୁଗୁ ରୁଗୁ ଘାରୁ ତୁ ଜାଣୁ ସାରା ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର ଏବେ ଭଣ ଭଣ ତୋର ମଥାରେ ପ୍ରଜାପତି କି ଆଉ ବସନ୍ତା ପଟା ପଟା ଫଟା ଫଟା ପିଠିରେ ତୋର ଯେଉଁଠି ଭାଗବଣ୍ଟରା ସରି ନାହିଁ ମନଲୋଭା ମାନଚିତ୍ର ତୋର ସରହଦର କେଉଁ ଅଜଣା ରାଇଜର ଆଦିବାସିନୀଙ୍କ ଅବୋଧ୍ୟ ସୁମଧୁର ପ୍ରଣୟ ଗୀତ ପରି ମହ ମହ ତୋର ବିଷ୍ଟା ପାଇଁ ହେବାର ଯଦି ଅଛି ଆଉ 2-3ଟି ବିଶ୍ୱଯୁଦ୍ଧ କ'ଣ ଯାଏ ଆସେ ସେଥିରେ ତୋର ରେ ବୈରାଗୀ ମଇଁଷି ତୁ ତ ଏବେ ଭୋଳ ତୋର ଜର୍ଜର ସୁନ୍ଦରତାରେ ତୋର ଆଖିର ଉଜ୍ଜ୍ୱଳତାରେ ଲିଭି ଆସୁଛି ଆକାଶ ତୋର ଆଖିର ଉଜ୍ଜ୍ୱଳତାରେ ଲିଭି ଆସୁଛି ଆକାଶ ଯଦି ଚମକୁଛି କିଛି ସେ କେବଳ ତୋ ମଥାର ଘା ସଜ ସତେଜ
Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep ji.
Thank you.
The English translation is by Gunanidhi Mahapatra. O buffalo, O buffalo, your smelly wound developed in your broken horn is more astounding than the newly blooming flowers. Your head, the abode of the gadflies, is now for all the center of attraction. To drive the flies away, your tail, long and short, long and strong, can never reach there, but still calm and cool you are. With the fire of your extreme hunger, the blood flowing from your great gash can never have a good fight, nor can you save your country that has been stinking with your festered lesion. Never, never, and never again shall the spring set off its journey to your fractioned and painful land, nor even the beetles shall ever call on your stripes and cracks. O ascetic buffalo, for your sweet smelling excrement felt mysterious like the love song of the unknown tribal ladies. If there occurred another world war, nothing you would lose but your rare, rough beauty that you are mesmerized with. To the luster of your eyes, the sky is coming to be confined. Something that glitters is nothing but your wound, fresh and aromatic. To the luster of your eyes, the sky is coming to be confined. Something that glitters is nothing but your wound, fresh and aromatic. Pradeep ji,
Thank you, Iryna ji. Sorry, Kamayani.
Kamayani.
मोर परवर्ती कविता सेमाने कहंती दे सेइस हाँ शब्द ही गुरुत्वपूर्ण केही केही उस्ताद कहंती नीरवता ही गुरुत्वपूर्ण हेले नीरवतार तो राई झाई शब्द निरीह शिशु कन्या को डाहाण पापुली रे टेकी धरी शिଳରେ କଚାଡ଼ି ଦେଲା ବେଳକୁ ଶୁଭିଥିବ ଯେଉଁ ଶବ୍ଦ ତାହା କ'ଣ ହୋଇଥିବ ବିଜୁଳିର ଚଡ଼ଚଣାଣ ଗର୍ଭଗୃହ ଭିତରେ କିଏ ଜଣେ କାଠ କାଟୁଥିବ ଯେ ଅନନ୍ତ କାଳ କିଏ ଜଣେ ଉପନିଷଦ ବୋଲୁଥିବ ସୁର ଓ ତାଳରେ ନିମଜ୍ଜିତ ସମୁଦ୍ର ଘୁଞ୍ଚିଯିବ 1.5 ଇଞ୍ଚ ଗୋଟିଏ ଶବ୍ଦର ଅନ୍ତର୍ଧ୍ୱନିରୁ ଆର ଶବ୍ଦର ଅନ୍ତର୍ଧ୍ୱନି ଯାଏଁ ଲମ୍ବିଥିବା ଅପହଂସ ନିରବତାର ଏହା କମାଲ ସେମାନେ କହନ୍ତି ହୁମାଗ୍ନିର ଗର୍ଭବେଦନାର କୁଣ୍ଠାଣରୁ କେଶରେ ରକ୍ତ ପଖଳା ଯାଏଁ ପୁରାଣର ଆର୍ତ୍ତନାଦ ଶବ୍ଦ କିଛି କହେ ନା କହନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ କହନ୍ତି ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ହେବ ଭୀଷଣ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ପଳାଶ ଦନାରେ ଭାଗ ବଣ୍ଟରା ହେବ ଛିନ୍ନ ଭିନ୍ନ ଆକାଶର ଲୁହ ପୁରୁଖା ଲୋକମାନେ ଚିତ୍ର ଆଙ୍କିବେ ଶିଶୁଙ୍କର ଦେହରୁ ଚହଟି ଉଠୁଥିବ ଯାହାଙ୍କର ଶବଗନ୍ଧ ଆହା ଚେହେରା ଶୁଖିଗଲାଣି ଟିପୟରେ ସାଇତ ବୁଦ୍ଧଙ୍କର ଆପଣ କୁଆଡ଼େ ପଶିଥିଲେ ନିରବତାର ମଞ୍ଜକୁ କଳା କଳା ତାର ରାଉ ରାଉ ଶବ୍ଦ ଶୁଣିବାକୁ ଶୁଣିଲେ କ'ଣ କହୁଥିଲେ ସେମାନେ ଓଃ ତୁମୁଳ କାନ୍ଦ ବୋବାଳି ଧ୍ୱଂସ ମୁଖରୁ ବରତି ଯାଇଥିବା ବେଙ୍ଗଟି କିଛି କୁହେ ନା କହନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଆପଣ ଟିକେ ପଜେଇ ନେଲେନି ଆପଣଙ୍କ କୁରାଢ଼ୀ ଆହୁରି ଘଷିଥାନ୍ତେ ଚକ୍ ଚକ୍ ତୀକ୍ଷ୍ଣ ହାଣିବାର କଳା ବେଶ ଜଣା ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ ହେଲେ ହାଣିବାର ନାହିଁ କିଛି ଓ କାହାକୁ ଏ ଅପରୂପ ବସୁଧାର ସୁଷମାରେ ଆପଣଙ୍କ କୁରାଢ଼ୀର ନିଆଁ ଝୁଲ କ'ଣ କମ୍ ମନୋରମ ଆପଣ କ'ଣ ଭାବୁଛନ୍ତି ପଥର କିଛି କହେ ନା କହେ ସେମାନେ କହନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ କେବଳ କେବେ ଉକୁଟାଏ ଫୁଲ ତ କେବେ ପାଣି ଫାଟିଯାଏ Now I hand over to
Thank
Shyam.
you. Thank you. So this poem in English is called They Say, and the English translation is by Professor Dinesh Patnaik. Yes, the word is significant. Some authorities affirm, and yet inner resonance of silence is vibrant. The sound that is heard while lifting the girl child, on the right palm and thrashing it on a slab of stone. Sound must have been heard, remembering the rattle of lightning. Somebody would be cutting wood within the sanctum sanctorum, would be cutting, and cutting, with time, without time. With time, without end, somebody would be chanting the Upanishad, and the sea wrapped in the tone and rhythm would recede 1.5 inches. This would be the miracle of the unreachable silence stretching from the inner resonance of one word to another. They say from the tenesmus of the birth pang of sacrificial fire to the Puranic screams of blood-bathed braids, the word doesn't say anything, they say. They say War would break out, a terrible war. Tears would accumulate in sal leaf cups. Elderly people would draw pictures of children whose bodies reek of the stench of corpses. Alas, the Buddha reclining on the teapot has shriveled. It is said to get into the stage of silence, to listen to the deep, black, raucous noise. Did you? What did they say? Oh, the wailing of the unrestrained proportion, the frog that has escaped annihilation doesn't say anything, they say. You better sharpen your axe, sharpen it further, luminous and acute. You're adept at the art of bloodletting, yet there is nothing to tear open, anything or anybody. In this earth of incredible beauty are the sparks flying from your sharpening axe. Are of any little beauty? What's on your mind? Don't the stones speak? They do. They say, on occasion it emits sparks, and on others it throws into water. Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep ji. Thank you for those lovely, lovely poems. Thank you very much. We loved hearing you in Odia. I think many of our listeners were also very excited about listening to the rhythm of the poems in Odia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And next we welcome Ghassan-Al-Kunaizi. He's a Saudi writer and a translator. Ghassan has published 2 collections of poetry and an Arabic translation of selected poems by the American poet John Ashbery, Self-Portrait in a Convex Mirror, and other poems. He started his literary journey by writing and translation for Saudi newspapers. His poems and translations have been published in many local and pan-Arab newspapers and periodicals. Some of his poems have also been translated into English, Spanish, Hindi, and French. He has been described as a poet of delicacy and rigor, and was awarded the Pan-Arab Sergon Boulos Award for Poetry and Translation. I'm sorry if I did not pronounce that like the French would, for the year 2021. Ghassan, welcome, and we are so eager to hear you. Let's begin your poems.
Thank the Kritya-Poetry movement and my dear friend poet Trafi Saxena for bringing me along with these eminent poetical voices from different countries and cultures. It's my pleasure and honor. Of course, at this moment, my thoughts and prayers are with the Ukrainian people and all the lives and souls afflicted by this tragic conflict. I have a set of 6 poems. I'll read whatever the time permits here. The title is Physics, and these are 6 short poems. The English translation will be read by Kamayani ji, and the translator is the poet and translator Golan Haji, a very good, excellent translator and poet. The first text is, I'll go to Arabic now, I guess. Solo, أو بالعربي عزف منفرد. الموسيقى التي تتبع الصوت موسيقى الغرفة الأخرى التي تملأ الممرات براقصين جذلين وبالنشوة قبل أن تصلك. المستمع ليس أنا، بل الصالة والأثاث واللوحات والتماثيل والمنفضة. الموسيقى التي تتبع صوتك هذا العزف المنفرد، والضجيج والجلبة التي يأتي بها، وأولئك العازفون الذين ينتظرون أدوارهم.
Thank you, Ghassan. May I read the translation? All right. So the English version is a translation by the poet Golan Haji. Solo. The music that follows the voice, the music of the other room, which fills the hallways with joyful dancers and with ecstasy even before it reaches you. The audience is not me, rather, it is the hall, the furniture, the paintings, the statues, and the ashtray, the music that follows your voice, the solo performance, the noise and the clamor it brings, and those musicians waiting for their turn. Ghassan?
Thank you. Second poem is Climate. طقس. رائحة جذوع النخل المحترقة في هواء ساكن ورطب، في اللاحضور المبهت للشمس والغبار الناعم كالذرور في المقابر، الذي من أجله نزم الشفتين تحسبا ونقطب الجبين دفاعا عن الأعين. هي رائحة عتيقة تلائم أكثر أولئك القدماء الذين كانت ملابسهم تاريخا أبيض من الدموع، الذين يجلسون يهندسون المجرة كما لو كانت بيت راحتهم، ويلفظون الفيض الأول للمعرفة مرة بعد مرة. كيف سأجلس إلى أولئك المشائين الذين يهجسون بالأصفار وحساب المثلثات ويتساررون بالحكمة؟ كيف سأعيش في بيتهم ولا بيت راحة أو مناديل معطرة أطرد بها رائحة الجذور التي في هواء قديم ساكن ورطب؟ كيف سأغتسل مع أولئك العرفانيين في نهر بلا بقع بترول أو أكسيد الزئبق أو الرصاص؟ كيف سأبدل دروعي المخملية وذخيرتها ذاكرة الفولاذ والطرائد والحيوانات المهجنة وغابات الأمازون والبروليتاريا، أبدلها بلفافة بيضاء ذاكرتها توابل عتيقة لا تنتهي، اسمها اللاعنف. كمياني.
Climate. The smell of plant roots in a damp and still air, in the stunning non-presence of the sun, and the dust, fine as the powder of graveyards, against which we purse the lips in vigilance and wrinkle the foreheads in defense of the eyes. It is a bygone smell, better suiting those ancient fellows whose clothes were a white history of tears, who sit down geometrizing the galaxy as if it were their restroom, and stutter the first emanation of knowledge time after time. How would I set before the peripatetics who internalize zeros and trigonometry and confide about wisdom? How would I live in their houses with no restroom, nor scented tissues, with which I expel the stink of plant roots in an ancient, damp and still air? How would I bathe with those Gnostics in a river with no oil spills, mercury oxide or lead? How would I surrender my velvet armory, whose cachet is the memory of steel, praise, crossbred animals, Amazon forests, and the proletariat, for a white shawl whose memory is never-ending, ancient spices named non-violence?
Thank you. I think I'll skip one poem and go to Gravity, جاذبية. جاذبية. الجرف حيث رمينا المناديل وقفنا عليه نشهد فعل الجاذبية، ثم إننا أحببنا بل عشقنا ما رأينا. رأينا الروح الخفيفة تسابق المناديل، رحلة استعذبنا لطف هوائها، ما غمض لنا فيها جفن ولا سكتت النجوى. استمرأنا تطاير الثياب وتناثر ما اصطنعنا من الأحبة لحاجة ومن المريدين لحظة ملل السقطة التي فاضت وأوصلت. كمان يجي.
Gravity. The precipice where we cast the handkerchiefs, we stood upon it, witnessing the act of gravity. Then we liked, even loved, what we saw. We saw the weightless soul racing the handkerchiefs. A flight we adored the magnanimity of its air, during which we never closed an eye or stopped our self-talk. We delighted in the clothes going airborne, and in the scattering of lovers we once took out of need, and devotees we forged in moments of boredom, the fall that extended over and delivered.
Thank you. My next text is titled Entropy. And it's the same word in Arabic, more or less. Another Arabic synonym is اعتلاج. Entropy هي طاقة الخلاء التي إليها مددنا الأيدي من النوافذ فجاءت ليست نسائم زرقاء أو هبات ترابية نكهة، بل هي دوامات من الأخيلة تخترق الطفل والصبي والكهل فينا على إيقاع من طبل ودفوف. ما إن مددنا الأيدي حتى انحسرت أحجبة عن كل يد، وجلبة عظيمة لهواء عبرت بين الأصابع كما لو هوجاء الريح بين الأشرعة، أياد قد أبحرت في الجوار تتحسس الأثر الضئيل الذي تتركه المخلوقات في الهيولي. تلك هي رياضيات الحياة وفيزيائياتها، طاقة الخلاء. انتروبيا. انتروبيا أناديك يا طاقة الفوضى وطاقة التشتت. الأيادي حين تمتد إلى الشرفات والدهاليز وارتدادات المباني، والطاقة التي تأتي كالصقر الذي بعد ملاحقة الطرائد يحط على اليد. كمان يجي.
Entropy. It is the energy of the void to which we stretched the hands through the windows. Hence it came, not as blue breezes, nor dust-flavored draughts, but rather as swirls of spectres, spearing through the newborn, the youthful, and the elderly inside of us, accompanied by a rhythm of drums and cymbals. Once we stretched the hands, all shrouds subsided away from every hand, and a great clamor of air passed through the fingers, as if a tempest force through the sails. Hands have navigated the vicinity, feeling the slight trace that creatures leave in the primordial matter. Those are the mathematics of life and its physics, the energy of the void. Entropy, I summon you, O energy of chaos, energy of dispersion. The hands, when reaching to the porches, vestibules, and setbacks of buildings, and the energy that comes like the bird falcon when landing after chasing its prey upon the hand.
Thank you. I'll have one last short poem. It's called Insomnia. أرق. الغرفة عندما تضمني وتحنو على أرق خفيف يجاور النافذة، الستارة التي غابت أو تأخرت لكي أرى بين كل خطفة نظر وبين تقليبة وأخرى صور الأشجار بالأبيض والأسود حيناً وباللون حيناً آخر، لكن الأصفر ضوء الأشجار وظلها في السقف وفي قاع العين يصحب حلمي، الحلم الخفيف الذي لا يأتي إلا حين تبهت الأضواء وتذوب في أزرق النهار. كمان يجي.
Insomnia. The room which encloses me and caresses a slight insomnia beside the window, the curtain that remained absent or lingered behind, so that in every glance and in between each rollover, I see pictures of trees, sometimes in black and white, and sometimes in colors, but yellow, the light of trees, and its shadow upon the ceiling in the bottom of the eye accompanies my dream. The airy dream that does not come till the lights grow pale and melt in the blue of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ghassan. Thank you for bringing
Thank
your
you.
poems to Kritya. Thank you. We love them so much. Next, I invite Nigar Hasan-Zadeh. Nigar Hasan-Zadeh is a famous poet and a public figure. Nigar has performed her poetry at the most prestigious venues in England. Her poems have been translated by leading British poets Elaine Feinstein, Richard McCain, Christopher Arkell, and her poets have appeared regularly in the London Magazine, Modern Poetry in Translation, London Miscellany, London Poetry, etc. In 2009, the Great British Library included her in the list of the 10 best foreign poets of 2009 living in the United Kingdom. Having lived in Britain for many years, she has now returned to her homeland, where, with the support of the Ministry of Culture of Azerbaijan, she founded and headed the literary project SOS, which in translation means word. Needless to say, she is a very vastly published writer. She writes in Russian, and here we have a wonderful poet, and let's listen to her.
Thank you very much for such an introduction. I really feel flattered. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for such a wonderful poetry reading, and I must say that I really enjoyed the poetry which I've heard. Many thanks to my colleagues poets for writing such a wonderful words at such a difficult times. We all know what's going on in the world now. It's very difficult, to be honest. Me myself personally, I've been in tears for the last days. It's really painful because I have friends in Ukraine and I have friends in Russia, and though I am Azerbaijani and my blood is Turkish, I write in Russian language, so I'm kind of a cosmopolitan figure. And for me, as for I think every each of us, is very difficult to accept that today in the world such cruelty takes place and people are dying. Very difficult to accept it. My dear poets, since I moved to Azerbaijan, it's been very difficult to translate my poetry into English. So I decided to read my very early poetry, which been translated by my dearest friend who passed away, Richard McCain, English poet translator. And that was the first book which was published in England in 2002. And I thought that maybe the short poems may reflect my feelings today. So if you don't mind, I'll read it in English in translation. To the right, you yourself groan. To the left, the rest groan. The wild thoughts of silence are torn to pieces by voices. Under the shade of eyelids, the buried rubble of desires, so dear they hurt, smashed barbarously into having mercy on Sisyphus' efforts. Humility, God-given destiny is not for rebels, for mad ones' lot. The first will bless when the last could not care less. This is a very short poem, and I wrote it when I was only 25. But I thought actually it sounds, maybe it's the right time to read it. And in Russian it sounds like this. Направо стонешь сам, налево стонут остальные. На растерзание голосам, молчание, помыслы шальные. Под тенью век зарытый хлам, до боли дорогих желаний, разбитый беспардонно пополам, по милости сизифовых стараний. Смирение богов предназначение, мятежникам, безумцам не дано. Подарят первые свое благословение, когда последним будет все равно. The second poem is this. Shall I read it first in original or in translation? What is the best for you?
I think original and then translation would be good.
Sure. Прикрой глаза всего на миг случайно, прозрачной пеленою грез, и разгляди во мраке тайном лучи давно засохших слез, чей блеск невинности хрустальной мутил своим теплом покой, в чьем одиночестве печальном сквозило счастье порой. Прикрой глаза, там рушатся надежды. Ты не смотри, а под ресницами весна. И в ней, срывая пыльные одежды, ты, как ни странно, все еще одна. Себя даруя небесам, послав к чертям притворную реальность, потусторонним доверяясь голосам, играя в пожелтевшую банальность, мечтам себя всю до последних слов, мелодии последней, недопетой, без замкнутых цепей и без оков, не посрамленный, но раздетый. Close your eyes for just a moment with the transparent veil of dreams and seek in the sacred darkness the rays of long dried tears, whole sparkles of crystal innocence, troubled peace of mind with warmth, in whose sad loneliness happiness sometimes showed through. Close your eyes, their hopes are smashed outside. Don't look, spring is under your eyelashes, and tearing off your dusty clothes, you, however strange it is, are still alone. Give yourself up to the heavens, having sent pretending reality to the devils, trusting yourself to voices on the other side, playing at the seared banality of your dreams, to the very last words, letters, the last melody sung but not finished, without the choking chains, without fetters, not shamed but underdressed. Many thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nigar. We enjoyed those Russian poems and we loved the translations. Thank you very much. Next, we have Dr. Pritidhara Samal, and she's an eminent voice in Odia literature who has been writing poetry, stories, and essays for almost 2.5 decades now. She teaches Odia at the Government College for Women in Koraput, and she's the first Indian writer to have been published under the Navodaya scheme of Sahitya Academy, New Delhi. Pritidhara has 4 collections of poems to her credit and is the recipient of more than 50 state awards. She will read poetry in Odia, and I will then read her translations in English and Hindi. Welcome, Pritidhara ji. We are so happy to have you here. आइए। जी मैम, आप अपनी आपको सुनाई दे रहा है? प्लीज आप अपनी कविताएं पढ़ें।
Yes. Am I audible?
यस।
मुझे मैं सुनाई दे रही हूँ?
जी प्रीति जी, हम सुन पा रहे हैं। आप
Hello?
अपनी कविताएं पढ़िए प्लीज।
Am I audible?
यस।
जी जी जी. Namaste to all. Sorry for coming late. Now I'm going to recite my poems. The first one is କ୍ଷତ, wound. ଗୋଟାଏ କ୍ଷତକୁ ସାଇତି କାଳେ ଶୁଖିଯିବ ବୋଲି ଡାମ୍ଫଣଟେ ଧରି କେତେବେଳେ ଆଉ ଟିକେ ଗଭୀର କରିଦଉଛି ତ, କେତେବେଳେ ବିଗତ ସ୍ମୃତିକୁ ସଳିତା କରି ପୋଷେ ତାଜା ରକ୍ତର ତେଲ ଢାଳି ଦଉଛି ସେ କ୍ଷତରେ। ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ବାଟ ଭୁଲା ନିଶାଗ୍ରସ୍ତ ରାତିଟେ ପଶି ଆସେ ଶୋଇବା ଘର ଭିତରକୁ, ସେ କ୍ଷତ ବେଶୀ ବେଶୀ ରକ୍ତାକ୍ତ ହୁଏ। ଲୁହ ଜର୍ଜର ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତ ମାନେ ଧାଡ଼ି ବାନ୍ଧି ଠିଆ ହୁଅନ୍ତି ସାମ୍ନାରେ। ଆଶ୍ୱାସନା, ସମ୍ବେଦନା, ପ୍ରତିଶ୍ରୁତି ବାରବୁଲା ପରି ବୁଲୁଥାନ୍ତି ସମୟର କନ୍ଦି ବିକନ୍ଦିରେ। କାଳ କାଳରୁ ଦୂର ଆକାଶର ତାରାମାନେ ଜଳୁଥାନ୍ତି ଅସଂଖ୍ୟ କ୍ଷତର ଦିହୁଡ଼ି ହୋଇ। ରାସ୍ତା କଡ଼ରେ କି ହସ୍ପିଟାଲ ବାରଣ୍ଡାରେ ଅଲୋଡ଼ା ଛୁଆକୁ ସ୍ତନ ଦେଉଥିବା କୁଆଁରୀ ମାର ସଂକୋଚ ପରି ସେ କ୍ଷତରେ ବି ଗୋଟେ କାହାଣୀ ଥାଏ, ଯାହାକୁ କହି ବସିଲେ ନିଅଣ୍ଟ ପଡ଼େ ଶବ୍ଦ। ସ୍ୱପ୍ନରୁ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନକୁ ଡେଇଁ ସେ ପାର ହେଉଥାଏ ମୃତ୍ୟୁ ନଈ। ସମୟର ସକଳ ପ୍ରଚେଷ୍ଟା ସତ୍ତ୍ୱେ ବକ୍କଳ ପଡ଼େନି ତା ଉପରେ। ନିଜ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ନିଜ ସହ ଲଢୁ ଲଢୁ ନିଜ ଅସ୍ତ୍ରରେ ନିଜକୁ ଦେଇଛି ଏ କ୍ଷତ। ଗୁଣ୍ଡୁଚି ପିଠିର ଗାର ପରି ଖୁବ୍ ପୁରୁଣା ତାର ଚିହ୍ନ। ସେ କ୍ଷତରେ ମଲମ ଲଗାଇ ହୁଏନି। ସେ ହିଁ ଦେଖିଛି ମୋର ଗୋପନ ପାପକୁ। ସେ ହିଁ ଭୋଗିଛି ମୋର ଏକାକିତ୍ୱ, ଶୁଣିଛି ଅସହାୟ ଗୀତର ସ୍ୱରକୁ। କାଚ ପରି ଖଣ୍ଡ ଖଣ୍ଡ ଭାଙ୍ଗି ଯିବାର ଯନ୍ତ୍ରଣା, ପାରଦ ପରି ଯୋଡ଼ି ଜାଡ଼ି ହେଇ ଗଢ଼ି ଯିବାର
All right, so in the meantime, I think I can take over and read the translation of the poem that she was reciting. And this poem in English is called Wound. It has been translated from Odia into English by none other than Jayanta Mahapatra. Wound. Just this one wound I've been nursing till today, afraid it might heal. I'd prod it deeper with a needle at times. Some days, too, I'd roll out a wick from bygone memories, pour a handful of fresh blood's oil to the wound. Whenever the night, drunk and wayward, enters the bedroom, the wound becomes bloodier and bloodier. Tear-drenched moments line up in front of me. Solace, affection, and assurance wander around like tramps in the clefts of time. For eons, past stars in faraway skies have been on fire, flaming brands of innumerable wounds. Words fail to describe the tale behind the wound of the chagrin of the teenaged girl. For there is a story that can't be denied, who doesn't shun to give her breasts to her unwanted child on the roadside as she goes on crossing the river of death, leaping from dream to dream, or even after the many endeavors of time, not a scab forms on it. With my own weapons, I have inflicted this wound on myself as I fought myself on my own battleground, age old as the stripes on a squirrel's back is its sign. For no balm can ever soothe such a wound. Only this wound has seen my secret sins. It has only experienced my aloneness, heard the song's helpless tune. It has borne the pain of glass breaking into shards and felt the ecstasy of a thread of mercury breaking apart and then coming together in passionate flow. Like my dearest teacher, it holds me back, inspiring me too like a lover, making me suffer the heart's silent agonies. And when I search for myself in the dark, it takes on my looks and stands right there in front of me. ETG, please read the next poem.
ହଁ ଜି ସ୍ପର୍ଶ ଇଚ୍ଛା ହେଲା ଥରେ ଛୁଅନ୍ତି ତୁମକୁ ଛୁଅନ୍ତି ତମର ଦେହ ଦେହ ଭିତରର ନଈ ନାଳ ବଣ ପାହାଡ଼ ଉପତ୍ୟକା ଆକାଶ ଜହ୍ନ ନକ୍ଷତ୍ର ଲୁହ ଲହୁର ଲବଣ ସମୁଦ୍ର ତମ ମୋ ଭିତରେ ବ୍ୟବଧାନ କହିଲେ ଏକ ସଲ୍ଲଜ ସମ୍ଭ୍ରମ ତମକୁ ଛୁଇଁବ ବୋଲି ଉଠୁନଥିବା ହାତ ତମ ପାଦ ପାଖରୁ ଫେରି ଆସୁଥିବା ଚାହାଣୀ ଏସବୁ ମିଶି ତିଆରି ହେଇଥିବା ସୂକ୍ଷ୍ମ ବାଡ଼ ଯାହାର ସେପଟେ ତମକୁ ଛୁଇଁବାର ଇଚ୍ଛାଟିଏ ପୁନର୍ନବା ପରି ବାରମ୍ବାର ମରି ପୁଣି ବଞ୍ଚି ଯାଉଥାଏ। ମୁଁ ଆସିଲି ବହୁତ ଡେରିରେ ସେତେବେଳେ ଖୁବ୍ ଭିଡ଼ ତୁମ ଚାରିପଟେ ରଥାରୂଢ଼ ଭଗବାନ କଣ ଜାଣିପାରେ କେହି ଜଣେ ଅକିଞ୍ଚନ ଭକ୍ତ କେମିତି ଚାହିଁଛି ତାକୁ ମାଗୁଛି କଣ ଅନୁଚ୍ଚାରିତ ଶବ୍ଦରେ ମୁଁ ତୁମକୁ ଛୁଅନ୍ତି ଯେ କାଳେ ତମେ ଦେଖିନବ ମୋ ଅସତ୍ୟପଣ କାଳେ ତମେ ଜାଣିନବ ମୋ କାମନା ଶୁଦ୍ଧ ନୁହେଁ ଯଦି ମୋର ସ୍ପର୍ଶ ଭଲ ନ ଲାଗେ ତମକୁ କିମ୍ବା ତାକୁ ତୁମେ ଅଗ୍ରାହ୍ୟ କରିବ କାଳେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ସାମ୍ନାରେ ତମେ ମୋ ସ୍ପର୍ଶ ମତେ ଫେରେଇବ ଏ ହାତରେ ଆଉଁସିଛି କେତେ ପାପଙ୍କର ପିଠି ଦରାଣ୍ଡିଛି ନରକର ରାସ୍ତା ମିଛ ଅହଙ୍କାରର ପିଠଉରେ ଆଙ୍କିଛି ମୁଁ ଚିତା କେମିତି ଛୁଇଁବି କହ ତମେ ତ କଳଙ୍କହୀନ ମୋ ପ୍ରିୟ କବିତା କେହି ଜଣେ ବାନ୍ଧିଦେଲା ମୋର ହାତ ଓ କହିଲା ଛୁଇଁବା ପାଇଁକି ହାତ କଣ ଦରକାର ହାତଠୁ ବେଶୀ ଗଭୀର ଛୁଇଁପାରେ ଓଠ ଏବଂ ତା ପରଠୁ ମୁଁ କେତେ ତୃଷିତା ଦେଖ ମୋ ଓଠରେ କେଉଁ ଆଦିମ ଯୁଗର ତୃଷ୍ଣା ମୁଁ ଏକ ଭିନ୍ନ ମଦାଳସା ମହୁଲ ଗଛରୁ ନିଶବ୍ଦରେ ମହୁଲ ଝରୁଛି ଏ ମାତାଲ ରାତି ସତେ ନୂଆ ଜୀବନ ଖୋଜୁଛି କାମାୟନି
So this poem is called Touch. Once I felt like touching you, your body, the rivers and springs, forests, valleys, the sky, the moon, and the stars, the sea of salt of blood and tears there. The distance between you and I is but a layer of inhibition, a subtle wall made of my looks returning from near your feet, my yet unraised hands, ever deferring a touch. Beyond the wall, the desire to touch you is reborn each time it dies. I came very late, even as you were surrounded by a crowd. Can a god seated on the throne know of the unknown devotee who waits unseen for a favor to be granted? I could touch you, but I'm afraid you would discover my desire is not free from flaw. Maybe you would refuse and return me my touch and let me down in public. I have caressed many a sin, crawled on the paths leading to the hall. I have drawn pictures, have colored them with vain glory. How can I touch you? You say, unblemished as you are the poetry of my love. Someone tied my hands and said, what do you need your hands for? Lips can touch the depths more than the hands. And thereafter, see how thirsty I have grown. The primitive thirst is on my lips. I am a different seductress waiting in the chalice wine. The night in an enticed silence, in searching for a new life. This was translated into English by Chitranjan Mishra.
थैंक यू कामायनी जी जी इतर ଲୋକଟେ ହେଇ ରହିଗଲି ସାରା ଜୀବନ ପାଦ ଶବ୍ଦ ଶୁଭିଯିବ କାଳେ କାଟିଦେଲି ପାଦ କଥା ମୋର ଶୁଭିଯିବ କାଳେ ସିଲେଇଲି ଓଠ ଆଖି ପତାକୁ ଆଦେଶ ଥିଲା ଉପରକୁ ଚାହିଁବନି ଚୁଡ଼ିର ରୁଣୁଝୁଣୁ ଶୁଭିଯିବ ବୋଲି ବାନ୍ଧି ଦେଇଥିଲି ହାତ କେତେ କାଳ ଆଉ କେତେ କାଳ ଇଚ୍ଛାରେ ହେଉ କି ଅନିଚ୍ଛାରେ ବାପା ମୋର ଦାନ କରିଥିଲେ ପୁଣ୍ୟ ବଦଳରେ ଗ୍ରହିତା ମୋର ତିଆରି ଥିଲା ପ୍ରାସାଦ ପରି ଗୁହାଳଟେ ବାନ୍ଧିଦେଲା ସୁବର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଖୁଣ୍ଟରେ। ଦିନେ ଖୁଣ୍ଟରୁ ଫିଟି ଆକାଶକୁ ଚାହିଁଲି, ଆକାଶରୁ ଅଗ୍ନି ବର୍ଷା ହେଲା, ଖୁବ୍ ଜଳିଲି, ସେ ଜ୍ୱଳନ ଏବେ ବି ଦେହରେ ମନରେ। ସେଦିନ ମୋ ସ୍ୱାମୀ ପାଣି ଗିଲାସେ ବଢେଇ ଦେଲେ ତ, ଯୋଡ଼ା ଯୋଡ଼ା ଆଖି ମେଲି ହେଇଗଲେ କାନ୍ଥରୁ କବାଟରୁ ଝର୍କାରୁ ଛାତରୁ ଗଛରୁ ପତ୍ରରୁ ଏପରିକି ଅଗଣାର ଗାମଲାରେ ଥିବା କ୍ୟାକ୍ଟସ୍ ଗଛରୁ। ମୁହଁ ପୋଡୁ ତୋର ଝିଅ ଜନମ ବୋଲି କହି ନାହିଁ, ବରଂ ଲୁହା କଡେଇ ପରି ଚୁଲି ମୁଣ୍ଡରେ ତାତିଛି, ତରଳିଛି, ତରକିଛି, ମଥାର ଓଢଣା ତଳୁ ଝରି ପଡୁଥିବା ସ୍ୱେଦରେ ସୁଆଦିଆ କରିଛି ରାନ୍ଧଣା। କାନ୍ଥରେ ଡେରା ହେଇଥିବା ଛାଞ୍ଚୁଣୀ ପରି ଓଳେଇଛି ଦେହ ମନ ଘର ଦୁଆର ଅଗଣା। ମାଟି କଳସିର ପାଣି ପରି ମେଣ୍ଟେଇଛି ଶୋଷ, ଘୋରା ଚନ୍ଦନ ପରି ସାରିଛି ନିଜକୁ, କଞ୍ଚା ହଳଦୀ ପରି ମହକିଛି, ଅଥଚ ଥରଟିଏ ବି ଆଖି ଖୋଲି ଚାହିଁ ନାହିଁ କେହି। ଇତର ଲୋକ ଉପରେ ସହଜରେ ପଡେନା କାହାରି ଆଖି, ସିଏ ତ ଝାଡି ଦଉଥାଏ ଯୁଗ ଯୁଗର ଅଳନ୍ଧୁ ଅବିଶ୍ୱାସ, ନିଜକୁ ପୋତି ଦେଇଥାଏ ଘର ତଳେ ମୂଳଦୁଆ ପରି, କଇଁଚ ପରି ପିଠିରେ ବହୁଥାଏ ପୃଥିବୀ। କାମାୟନି।
इस कविता का शीर्षक हिंदी में भी इत्र है। इत्र बन के रह गई सारी जिंदगी, आहट से बचने के लिए काट डाला पैरों को, बात निकल न जाए तो होंठों को सी डाला, आंखों के लिए तो आसमां मना ही था, चूड़ियों के खनकने के डर से बांध लिया हाथों को भी। पर कब तक और कब तक, थोड़े सुकृत के बदले पिता ने सौंप दिया दान में मुझे, मेरी मर्जी तक पूछी नहीं, शौहर ने बनवा रखा था एक गायशाला महल सा, बांध दिया सोने के खूंटे पर 7 जन्मों के लिए। एक बार बस झांक कर क्या देखा आसमान की तरफ, घिराए बादल, बरसने लगी आग, ऐसी आग कि आज भी तन मन तपा हुआ है। उस दिन शौहर ने थमा क्या दिया एक गिलास पानी, तो आंखें उठी दीवार से, दरवाजे से, खिड़की से, छत से, पेड़ से, पत्ते से, यहाँ तक कि आंगन के कैक्टस से भी। फिर भी कोसा नहीं, लानत है लड़की होने पर, बस पिघला हूँ कढ़ाई की तरह चूल्हे के पास, लज्जत बढ़ाई खाने की चुप चुप के आंसू और पसीना बहाकर, बेगैरत झाड़ू की तरह झाड़ा है तन मन घर आंगन, मिटाई है प्यास सुराही के पानी की तरह, पिसा हूँ खुद को चंदन की तरह, महका हूँ हल्दी की तरह, फिर भी देखा नहीं किसी ने निगाह भर के मुझे, इत्र के ऊपर कहाँ किसी की नजर पड़ती है, वह तो यूं ही झाड़ देती है सदियों से पड़ा जाला, अंधविश्वास खुद को गाड़ देती है नीम के पत्थर की तरह, अपनी पीठ पर ढोई रहती है धरती कछुए की तरह। ये अनुवाद श्री हरिहर साहू का है। Thank you so much, Pritidhara ji. Thank you so much for
Thank
making
you.
it
Thank
possible
you.
to reach home in time and joining us for this session of poetry. And now we have another poet from Assam. We have Anubhav Tulasi ji, who is a practitioner of art and art in interdisciplinary paradigms. He's an Assamese poet who has made immense contribution to the Assamese literature in the 3 decades of his writing career. He has a unique poetic idiom that sets his poetry apart from the rest. He is the author of more than 30 books, of which 17 are collections of poems. His writing is imbued with the essence of the Assamese soil, and he likes to call himself an Indian poet who keeps his Assamese identity alive. Welcome, Anubhav ji. You will be reading your poetry in Assamese, and I shall read their translations. Welcome.
Thank you, Kamayani and Namaskar to everyone participating in this August meet organized by Kritya. Namaskar to Rati Saxena. Yes, I'm going to start with my poem in my language, Swadhinota. বতাহে ফুচুৰি কথা কৈছে উৰি থকা পতাকাখনে হাঁহিছে ঢেক 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 পতাকাখনে বতাহক কৈছে তোমাৰ কথাই ভাবি আছিলো বন্ধু তুমি দীৰ্ঘজীৱী হবা এইবাৰ বতাহে হাঁহিছে পতাকাখনত শুনা গৈছে প্ৰতিধ্বনি ঢেক 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 পৰাণ খোলা হাঁহিৰ অনুকাৰ মুকলিত ভাঁহিছে পতাকাক বতাহে সুধিছে যিসকলে বেলুন আৰু পাৰ চৰাই উৰুৱাইছিল সেই সকলেই স্বাধীনতাৰ নামত তোমাকো উৰুৱাইছে নে এৰাল দিছে পিছৰ 10 মিনিট বতাহ আৰু পতাকা দুয়ো স্তব্ধ Over to Kamayani, please.
So this poem is called Freedom in English. The wind is jesting, the fluttering flag is guffawing and guffawing. The flag has said to the wind, I was thinking of you, you live long. This time the wind is laughing, which echoed in the flag, guffawing and guffawing. The ripples of guffawing are wafting in the open. The wind asks the flag, those who've flown balloons and set pigeons free, haven't they unfurled you in the name of freedom? Have they unfurled you or tethered you? For the next 10 minutes, both the wind and the flag kept silent. This poem has been translated from Assamese by Narendranath Thakuria. Next.
My next poem, second one, বিশেষ এক ব্যাগ এইটো এটা বিশেষ ব্যাগ প্লাষ্টিকৰ ইয়াৰ ভিতৰত শুই আছিল এক নৰমনিষ মৰা এসোপামান শিয়নি আছিল বুকুৱে পিঠিয়ে যাৰ সুৰসুৰণি এটা তুলিছিল সেই শিয়নিয়ে প্লাষ্টিকৰ গাত এই নৰমনিষ আজি নাই বেগটো হলে আছে আৰু আবেলিৰ বৰষুণ যাকে তাক তিয়াইছে Kamayani, please.
This poem in English is called A Special Bag. This is a special bag made of plastic. A human being was sleeping inside it, dead. A good number of stitches had been there on whose back and front. Those stitches created a tickling sensation on plastic. That human being is no more. The bag is there, and the afternoon shower has wet it. This was translated by Vivekananda Chaudhary.
My third poem, Elevator. মাজরাস্তাত টায়ার জ্বলিছে সচিবালয়ৰ এলিভেটৰ এই উঠিছে এই নামিছে মাজরাস্তাত কোলাহল মুৰ্দাবাদ মুৰ্দাবাদ হুঁশিয়াৰ হুঁশিয়াৰ কণ্ঠবিদাৰী কোলা ধোঁৱা ওলাইছে গাড়ীৰ আইনা ভাগিছে ঠন 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 দাও দাওকৈ ট্ৰাক জ্বলিছে সচিবালয়ৰ এলিভেটৰ এই উঠিছে এই নামিছে সাইৰেন বজাই কিবা আহিছে, জাকে জাকে কোনোবা নামিছে, চকুত কন্দুৱা বায়ুৰ কোব, পিঠিত ঢকুৱা বান্ধি নহামখাৰ কি যে বিলৈ হৈছে, সচিবালয়ৰ এলিভেটৰ এই উঠিছে এই নামিছে, কেঁচা তেজ কল কল মাজ ৰাস্তাত পৰি আছে, ছটফটনিৰ পিছত গভীৰ টোপনি, প্ৰশান্তিয়ে বিৰাজ কৰিছে, থলুৱা টিভিয়ে তাকে লৈ তালফাল লগাইছে, চগা জুইত জাহ দোৱাৰ দৰে, দুই এটা আধানাৰ্জী হোৱাটো কিনো ডাঙৰ কথা, সব তৰ্ক সব বিতৰ্ক বাদ দি সৰ্বধৰ্ম প্ৰাৰ্থনা চলিছে, সচিবালয়ৰ এলিভেটৰ এই উঠিছে এই নামিছে, জ্বলি পুৰি শেষ হোৱা টায়াৰ ট্ৰাক আৰু দুঠেগীয়া ছাইৰ চিন ধুই দিয়া হৈছে, হাঁহিৰ ৰেখাধ্বনি শুনা গৈছে, সচিবালয়ৰ এলিভেটৰ এই উঠিছে এই নামিছে. Over to Kamayani, please.
This poem in translation is called The Elevator. Tires are burning in the middle of the road. The Secretariat elevator ascends and descends restlessly. Commotion in the middle of the road, down with deception, down with fakery. Beware, fellow men, beware, crushing the voices. Black smoke emerges. Car paints shatter and sunder. Trucks are ablaze. The Secretariat elevator ascends and descends restlessly. Something arrives with the blaring siren. Some dismount heavily in hordes, lashing of tear gas on the eyes, those without sheets on their backs. Oh, what a plight! The Secretariat elevator ascends and descends restlessly. Uncongealed blood spattered all over the street after the writhings in agony. Deep slumber, serenity prevails. Local TVs go on tumultuous over it as the self-immolation of green flies. What's there so much to fret about if one or two are impaired or defaced, leaving aside all wrangles? In all religion prayer session holds sway. The Secretariat elevator ascends and descends restlessly. The remnant ashes of the burnt-out tires, trucks, and bipeds too are washed away. Cheerful laughter echoes in the air. The Secretariat elevator ascends and descends restlessly. This translation was by Krishna Dulal Barua.
My next poem is Dhanurachon. ৰাতি 2 বজাৰ পিছত সি আহিছিল, লগত আনিছিল আৰু দুটা। ৰাতিনো ক'ত ৰাতি, তালফাল লগাই হেলোজেন জ্বলিয়ে আছিল, আন্ধাৰ ধোবাং বাং। সি আহিছিল ৰাতি 2 বজাৰ পিছত, লগৰ দুটাক লৈ মুঠতে 3 মাছ চোৰ। ভগৱান সাৰেই আছিল, জগন্নাথৰ ৰথযাত্ৰা ভাগোতে বহু পলম হৈছিল, টোপনি অহাই নাছিল, ইকাতি সিকাতি কৰি বাগৰি গৈছিল সময়। তেনেতে শুনা নুশুনা খচমচ, তেনেতে শুনা নুশুনা খুটুং খাটাং, ড্ৰামৰ সাফৰ খোলাৰ শব্দ, বৰফৰ বিচনাত মাছৰো অহা নাছিল টোপনি। ভগৱান, মাছ আৰু মানুহ মাছ মানুহ আৰু ভগৱান হাতত সাৰে ভৰিত সাৰে আহিল চাপি লগৰ দুটা ভুৰুংকৈ যেন উৰিহে গ'ল আৰু সি বেচেৰা উৰিবলৈ লওঁতেই খাওক উজুতি ভগৱানেই তাক প্ৰথমে পালে আউটকৈ গবা মাৰি ধৰিলে মানুহে তাৰ হাত ভৰি পিঠিৰ পিনে জপতিয়াই বান্ধিলে মাছে তাৰ ওচৰলৈ গৈ কলে খা মাছ খা কেঁচাই কেঁচাই খা ভগৱানৰ হাতত পৰিছে যেতিয়া প্ৰতিৰোধৰ দৰকাৰ নপৰে মানুহৰ হাতত পৰিছে যেতিয়া তাৰ গোটাসজীয়া মূৰটো গুৰি হবই হব আৰু মাছ তাৰ কল কল কেঁচা তেজত জুবুৰা মাৰি নৱজীৱন লব ৰাতিপুৱা চিঞৰ বাখৰ চৰাইৰ নে মানুহৰ বুজা টান আৰু পুলিচে আহি উদ্ধাৰ কৰিলে তাৰ দেহত ধনুৰাসনৰ আদৰ্শ মুদ্ৰা over to Kamayani, please.
So this poem, Dhanurasan, in English is called the bow asana. He came after 2 at night with 2 others. The night, after all, was hardly any night. Amidst the glaring halogens, darkness ripped apart. He came after 3 at night with 2 others. They were 3 in all, poachers of fish. God was wide awake. Jagannatha's Rath Yatra had ended very late, tossing and turning about. Time crept. Just then a mild rustle, just then a faint tickle, a bid to open a drum lid on the ice bed. The fishes too missed their sleep. God, fishes and men, men, fishes and God, closed in stealthily, instantly. The 2 accomplices seemed to take wing. Only he pitifully tripped on his bed. God grasped him in a flash. The men tied his hand and feet to his back. The fishes uttered near his face, "Come on, have your fish, raw and fresh." At the hands of God, what could he resist? At the hands of men, his head was to crumble, and the fishes would have their dips in his warm blood. To be reinvigorated, it was hard to tell whether the morning clamor was of birds or men. The police arrived to find him an ideal bow asana. This was translated into English by Krishna Dulal Barua.
I would like to skip my next poem, Urulipunga, the Prodigal, and go to the last poem of mine, Din Rati. 7জন অন্ধ তাহানি হাতী চাবলৈ যোৱা কিজনেই তেওঁলোক এই বেলি ওলাইছে সূৰ্য চাবলৈ বৰজনা অন্ধইহে পোনপ্ৰথমে বচন বুলিলে সূৰ্য দেখিবলৈ হাতীৰ মূৰটোৰ দৰে সূৰ্যও দতাল আৰু জাকৰ আগত যায় আন এজনে স্মৃতি সুৰত ভেজা দি কলে সূৰ্যৰ সুৰত সদায় থাকে 7 কলহ তাপ আৰু পোহৰ এজনে কাণৰ কথা ভাবি তপৰাই কলে সূৰ্যৰ গা ইমানেই গৰম যে দুখন বিচনেৰে বা দিব লাগে ভাতৰ লগত কেঁচা নিমখ খোৱাজনে কলে সূৰ্যই নিমখ খাই ইমানেই ভাল পায় যে সদায় নিমখীয়া সাগৰতহে বুৰ যায়। পিছফালৰ পৰা হাতী চাব যোৱাজনে সিদিনা ফেনেকিছিল হাতীৰ লাগ। বিগচিনা ভাৱ আজিও লাগি আছে। মুখত ৰুমাল লৈ সেয়ে কলে, সূৰুজৰ গু মোটেই আন্ধাৰ। হাতীৰ ভৰিকেইটাৰ কথা মনত থকা জনে কলে, সূৰ্য বুঢ়া হৈছে, ইমানেই বুঢ়া হৈছে যে চাৰিডাল লাখুটিত ভৰ দিহে চলিব লাগে। সবাতোকৈ সৰু জনাই কওঁ নকওঁকৈ কলে, মোৰ চকুকুটাৰেই সূৰ্যই জগতখন চাই আৰু মোকেই কণা বুলি হাঁহে। Over to Kamayani, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anubhav ji. इस कविता का हिंदी अनुवाद पढ़ूंगी। अनुवादक हैं किशोर कुमार जैन। वे 7 अंधे जो उन दिनों हाथी देखने गए थे, वे ही इस बार सूरज को देखने निकले हैं। सबसे बड़े अंधे ने पहले बात शुरू की, सूरज दिखने में हाथी के सिर की तरह है, सूरज भी दांतों वाला है और झुंड में आगे चलता है। दूसरे ने यादों के सूंड का सहारा लेते हुए कहा, सूरज की सूंड में हमेशा रहते हैं 7 कलश ताप और रोशनी। एक ने कानों के बारे में सोचते हुए तुरंत कहा, सूरज की देह में इतनी गर्मी रहती है कि 2 पंखों से झुलाते रहना पड़ता है। भात को कच्चे नमक के साथ खाने वाले ने कहा, सूरज को नमक खाना इतना ज्यादा पसंद है कि हमेशा खारे समुद्र में डूब जाता है। पिछवाड़े से जिसने हाथी को देखा था, उस दिन हाथी की लीद उसके पांव तले कुचल गई थी। उस गंदगी का भाव आज भी उसे लगा हुआ था। चेहरे पे रुमाल लगाकर उसने कहा, सूरज का गुमुत ही अंधकार है। जिसे हाथी के पांव की याद थी, उसने कहा, सूरज बूढ़ा हो गया है, इतना बूढ़ा हो गया है कि 4 लकड़ियों के सहारा लेकर उसे चलना पड़ता है। सबसे छोटे ने कहना न चाहते हुए भी कहा, मेरी आंखों से ही सूरज संसार को देखता है और मुझे ही अंधे कहकर हंसता है। Thank you so much, Anubhav ji. Thank you for these lovely poems.
Thank you so much.
I should now feel the privilege of inviting Kedar Mishra ji, who is a very senior poet himself, and he's a much loved poet from Orissa. He's a member of the team Kritya. I'm going to now request Kedar ji to conclude the session with a flavor of his own poetry. Kedar ji, you won't leave us without leaving a poem of yours. We need to unmute him. Kedar ji, we need to unmute you. Brajesh ji, can we unmute him?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I muted myself. Actually, I wanted to not read a poem, but again, thank you very much for giving this a chance. I'm going to recite one poem in Odia and its translation, and a couple of small poems in English. First poem is Juddhar Samay, the time of war. ମୁଁ ଏଠି ଭଲରେ ଅଛି, ମୋ ଦେଶରେ ଘୃଣା ଅଛି, ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ନାହିଁ। ମୋ ଦେଶରେ ଅବିଶ୍ୱାସ ବଢୁଛି, ବୋମା ଫୁଟୁନାହିଁ। ମୋ ଦେଶରେ ଏବେ ନିର୍ବାଚନର ସମୟ, ଭାଷଣରେ ଉଷ୍ମତା ଅଛି, ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ହେଇନାହିଁ। ମୁଁ ଏଠୁ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ଦେଖୁଛି ଟେଲିଭିଜନରେ, ହାବେଳି ବାଣ ପରି ଆକାଶ ସାରା ମିସାଇଲ, ଧୂଆଁ ଭିତରେ ମିଳେଇ ଯାଉଥିବା ମଲା ମଣିଷଙ୍କର ଚିତ୍କାର, ଉଜୁଡି ଯାଉଥିବା ଗୋଟେ ଦେଶ, ମୁଁ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ଦେଖୁଛି ଟେଲିଭିଜନରେ ଓ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ବିଷୟରେ ତର୍ଜମା କରୁଛି ଟେଲିଭିଜନରେ। ମୁଁ ଏଠି ଭଲରେ ଅଛି। ଯୁଦ୍ଧ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ କେହି ନାହାନ୍ତି ମୋର ବନ୍ଧୁ ବାନ୍ଧବ। ଯୁଦ୍ଧରେ ଛିଣ୍ଡି ପଡୁଥିବା ଗୋଟେ ଦେଶର କେଉଁ ଏକ କୋଣରେ ଡରି ମରି କେହି ନାହାନ୍ତି ମୋର ଆତ୍ମୀୟ। ମତେ ଯୁଦ୍ଧର ଗପ ଭଲ ଲାଗୁଛି। ମୁଁ ଯୁଦ୍ଧକୁ ନେଇ ବଢିଆ ଗପୁଛି। ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ଭିତରେ ମୁଁ ଭଲରେ ଅଛି। ଧ୍ୱଂସର ମାନଚିତ୍ରରେ ଚାଲିଛି ମୋର ଗମାତ। ମୁଁ ନିର୍ବାଚନର ଗଣିତ ଓ ଘୃଣାର ସହରରେ ଆରାମରେ ପ୍ରେମ କବିତା ଲେଖୁଛି। ମୁଁ ଏଠି ଭଲରେ ଅଛି। ମୋର ସୁଖ ସ୍ୱପ୍ନରେ ଠକ୍ ଠକ୍ କରୁଛି ଯୁଦ୍ଧ। ମୋର ଗହମ ନିଦରେ ବାରୁଦ ଗନ୍ଧ। ମୋର ପବନରେ ବିଷାକ୍ତ ଘୃଣା ରୁନ୍ଧାଣ। ମୋର ଦେହ ବୋମାରେ ବିକ୍ଷତ ଏକ ଦେଶ। ସେଇଠି ଯୁଦ୍ଧ ଆଉ ଏଇଠି ମୁଁ ଭଲରେ ଅଛି। ଏତକ ଭାବୁ ଭାବୁ ଘର ମୋର ବଙ୍କର ପାଲଟି ଯାଉଛି ଓ ଯୁଦ୍ଧରେ ମୁଁ ମାରୁଛି। ଯୁଦ୍ଧରେ ମୁଇଁ ମରୁଛି। ଯୁଦ୍ଧରେ ମୁଁ ମାରୁଛି। ଯୁଦ୍ଧରେ ମୁଇଁ ମରୁଛି। It's English translation, the time of war. In my country, there is hatred, but no war. There is mistrust, but no bombing. It's time of election in my country, so there is fire in the speeches, but no war. Watching the war in television, like firecrackers, the sky is full of missiles, scream of dead evaporated with smokes. I'm watching a devastated country on the screen of my television, and I'm speaking on war elaborately in the newsroom. I'm fine here. In the war zone, there is none from my family. In the war zone, there is none from my family. None of my friends is living there in that war-ravaged country. I found the war story interesting, and I am gossiping on the war loosely. I am fine this war time. My celebration is on amidst the death and devastation. I am writing love poems, living inside the very city of it. I am writing love poems, living inside the very city of hatred. I am fine here. The war is knocking at my dream. The smell of dynamite invaded into my skull. My air is full of suffocating poisons, and my body looks like a country wounded by bombs and missiles. I think I am fine. I think I am fine, but by thinking I am fine, my house becomes a bunker, and I am killing people in the war. Also, I am being killed in the war. By thinking I am fine, my house becomes a bunker, and I am killing people in the war. Also, I am being killed in the war. I am fine. I am fine here. I'm going to read three small poems in English. Homecoming 1. Riding on the back of fire, I come back home. I see darkness oozing out from my computer window, blood all over my books, humiliating silence crawling on floor, reflecting on the walls and roofs. I see my mirror of black. I see my withering mask, my debilitating hopes, and a shade of dawn about to die. I returned home to go back once again to a war, to a precinct of wreckage, to a state where hopes sprout in fatality. I returned home to go back once again to a war, to precinct of wreckage, to a state where hopes sprout in fatality. Homecoming 2. Last in the remotest crime of our city, drunk and lust in distant hopes, We met each other like accident. I broke my right foot. You had an injury in your left arm. Few kisses are broken, few lines erased, few pages from history book was lost. Simply, we met like an accident. Now I am brought up to a hospital bed. Now I am sleeping in my bed of arrows. Now I look my wounds blooming as flowers in my body. Tell me please, tell me please, where we really like an accident. Tell me please, where we had really met like an accident. Homecoming 3. Poison is not of rebuke. It's your face, your lovely face. How I love your face. Sorry. How I love your face, your eyes, your lips, your innocently curved emotions. I feel that tender hopelessness. I can still find a drop of tears that you devote for me. I can still hear the finale line of cloud and finishing dots above it. I'm terribly in love with my crime to be for yours only. I'm terribly in love with my crime to be for yours only. I know how poison looks like love in a misty map of our home. I know how poison looks like love in a misty map of our home. Thank you very much, Kamayani. This was from my side. And thank you very much to dear poets Anubhav Tulsi, Ghassan, Nigar, Iryna, Pritidhara, Pradeep. It was wonderful listening all of you, and it was a wonderful mosaic of feelings, sensibilities, concerns, and see a world of beauty. You know, it's uh, the beauty of Assamese, Odia, Arabic, Ukrainian, Russian, and of course English and Hindi. So it's Kritya which creates this mosaic, this panorama of beauty, the panorama of greatness. Thank you very much, Ratiju, once again for creating this wonderful platform. And this much I wanted to say, and it was a wonderful feeling to be a part of this program, this panel. And thank you, Kamayani, for making uh, this so beautiful, presenting it so beautifully. So over to Kamayani to say the final words and to say goodbye and good night to all.
Thank you, Kedarji. Thank you very much. On behalf of Rati Saxena ji, I thank all the poets for having accepted our invitation, and we hope to hear you again very soon at the Kritya Poetry Festival. Thank you and good night. To all our audience, we say we love you for having spared your precious time. And to all lovers of poetry, we'll be back soon. Thank you and good night.